Lovely, lovely, lovely people. A pleasant morning to you. Still morning for now, 1 minute to the afternoon. So, boy, GPS have me in my car. Boy, I feel charge up my phone and all of these things. Boy. But we do understand it was a Cat 5 hurricane. And, we just have to do what we do until they restore electricity and water and all, So we in Kingston, we have it. We have luxury in comparison to those in like St. Elizabeth, Black River, Montego Bay. I mean, I don't know if some of you have seen the Sangsters International Airport. Mighty God, and maybe there's some sort of, I know that they're having relief airplanes perhaps coming in the Norman Manley International, I think. I'm not sure, don't quote me on that, or the Ian Flemings. But I saw a video of the Sangster International Airport, and it, when I look at what this hurricane has done to property and to things, to resources, it tells me that people, look here, you value your things. God, it's important that you value the things that you have. I'm not saying that you must treat it very scantily and treat it poorly. No, you don't do that. But it is also important that you do not, you just have it and say, boy, I'm going to take care of it, but you don't find yourself sort of worshipping it subliminally. For example, if somebody should scratch your car, yes, it feels bad because it's going to cost. It may not cost you, but it makes your car look unkempt, or it looks not aesthetically good. It just gives a damaged look which you don't like, and we understand all of that, and we're humans and we have a right to our feelings and all of that. But you know what, people, life is more important, and it goes to show that every material thing can just go like that in the blink of an eye. I don't know if it was in St. Elizabeth. There were houses, you were seeing the water right up. You were seeing the water right up to the roof. Right up to the roof. The roof was almost covered. And I said, wow, this is just so sad, when you think about it. Because everything in that house now more than likely is damaged. I'm not sure. I remember some years ago I saw something like that in, I think, somewhere in Old Harbour, Clarendon side, where you were seeing when it was a heavy storm. It wasn't a hurricane. And you were only just seeing the roof. You're only seeing the roof because it was that heavy. I don't know if the drainage was bad or where they were located was, flood prone. And because of that, boy, I'd never wish that for the worst human being on the planet. That's horrible. That's devastating. That's debilitating to the mind, and when I think of, the damage and the damages, and just being set back, but the reality is that on the flip side is that these things can be replaced. They may take time. And usually you get better than what you had before. It may not look that way for now. You may get some things in the interim, but do not worship your things. And I just use the word worship for you to understand. When I looked at the damages, places flooded out and so on. And I'm sure that some cars, definitely I'm sure that there were a lot of luxurious cars were probably demolished, especially down the west. Down that side, I saw a regular road in St. Elizabeth. Mighty God, I really thought it was a gushing river. You saw the ladies' gate, rattling. She was saying, that's my gate, that's a road, And you see the water, they have to be staying upstairs looking at it. It was so frightening and so scary. And some of us, we probably just see some little trees, especially in Kingston. Like when I look around, in the Kingston metropolitan area, some places I'm talking, I haven't, and I realize there's just some trees fall down on the ground and they're just chopping them up to move it. It's just like debris in the road. And, we have to give God thanks because some of us don't even face not even an inch of what some people faced. Damages to their property and to their vehicles and whatnot. Don't just you take care of the things, but just have it in your mind that this can go. So I'm saying that to say, you see somebody, give them a ride. Offer them a ride. Don't be selfish. offer them a ride. If you know that you can go out of your way sometimes and carry some people to the hospital, to the supermarket, to wherever they are going. If they're going in a different direction and you're not rushing and you really don't have anything to do urgently, carry them. Go out of your way. Because this hurricane shows you that if it takes away your things, you're going to now have to depend on others. And it is important that you sow that seed, you know, where others can depend on you, so that when your turn comes of needing somebody, which you will, you know, because we live in this real world, you would want them to come to your rescue. It's not a nice feeling when you're disenfranchised, or when you're down and out in one form or another and you have nobody to call on, because I guess everybody just business with themselves, him or herself. You know, we don't care about whatever happened to anybody, just me, myself, and I. You don't want to say it, but it's a reality. Until calamity strikes and you realize you're going to need somebody's help. You know, I saw the Reverend Ann Miller talking about in an article that this disaster, and I'm just paraphrasing, you know, I'm not going to quote him verbatim, I don't have it in front of me, but he was basically saying that people, the disaster, it's because of the wickedness of mankind. They're corrupt, they're wicked, they're evil, and it has contributed to the disaster. He does have a point. I mean, yes, we live in a where Jamaica is situated, it is prone to hurricanes. You know, these tropical areas are prone to hurricanes and so on. You know, those types of natural disaster. But sometimes, you know, when I talk with people who are scientists and, you know, they do the sciences, I will tell you that mankind just their curiosity has got the better of them, and it may end up killing the cat, because them fast with nature, creating rainfall, creating the hurricanes, creating all manner of evil, let's put it that way. And if you try to be God, you know, you're going to be in for a treat that you're not going to like. You know, when you hear these things, it's just sad. I didn't know these things until somebody said it to me, you know, that they can actually you have the man-made natural disasters and rain and so on. And I said, oh my goodness gracious me. If they didn't tell me, I would know. I would just think it's naturally from God. But when he said it, I said, wow. You know, it is so sad. And it's just not only that, he was saying, you know, just the wickedness of man. And the only time they remember to call on God is during bad times, which is sad, which is very, very sad. You know, when we think of how wonderful God has been to us, in spite of the damages and the whatever it is that we face. And the only time we remember to say Jesus is when calamity strikes. That's a sad state of affairs. You know, because it's important that every day that you get up, you know, you may have a little one-off day where you forget and you slip for the moment. But generally speaking, it is imperative that you get up and you say, God, thank you for waking me up. Thank you for this. Thank you for that. You know, Lord, bless me. You know, forgive me of whatever sins. Let me treat my brother and sister right. You know, to just, you know, to protect me from evil, deliver me from evil. These different things. You know, so Reverend Ann Miller does have a point as it relates to the disasters because of the wickedness of mankind. Yes, we know that where we're situated, that is a contributory factor, but he has a point. You know, when you begin to play God, you're going to face serious consequences. You know, but people, as I said, value your things, treat them with, you know, in try and take care of your things. It's a good attitude to have, but don't laud it as how you should laud God or human beings, because anything can just destroy anything. You know, sometimes you see, I saw a lady, it wasn't even the hurricane, like it was raining and it moved the car from one section of the road to another section, creating damage. Nice car. You understand me? So do good with everything that you have and help your brother and sister. That is what pleases God. We leave the first part A and part B of the first commandment and jump to the way down commandments them. And look upon loving God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, your strength, and loving your neighbor, treating your neighbor the way you would want to be treated. We're failing that. You know, I hope we can brush up on that. Anyway, guys, you know what to do. Read TikTok and YouTube. Subscribe. Give me one of those lions.